Good day, class. This is a series of discussion. We'll talk about the different activities we've had since we started this semester. Okay, so we've already had discussed the difference rather of primary and secondary source. So we'll now, you know, immerse ourselves into different primary sources, specifically literary primary resources. Okay, so we will not cover like the whole accounts, the entirety of accounts, especially the first primary source we will discuss, only because it is very lengthy. But we will try to cover and analyze some parts of it, some transcripts of it, translations rather. We will basically cover these different accounts or records because as people who are studying history, they are our primary tools of understanding and interpreting the past. Okay, meaning those historical sources are the key for us to understand the past, at the same time make a sense of our present. Because historical sources, as we've already established, ascertain historical facts. Such facts, are then analyzed and interpreted by historians. And if well, we are capable of adding into those interpretation, then why not? Okay, meaning I know we can look a lot of interpretations of this different accounts in the internet. As students who are studying readings in Philippine history, it's also important to have a first-hand analysis, interpretation, not really interpretation, but digesting of this different accounts. So we'll proceed with the next one. The first account, okay, we've had groupings in this particular topic. Okay, some of my classes have actually already, presented or reported their outputs for this one. Some have not yet presented it. Okay, they will have their chance rather to present the contents of it. Regardless of them already presenting it or not, it's safe to say we can already discuss this particular topic. Before I asked the class to be divided into a group, I already gave a short introduction about the author, meaning the one who created the different accounts on Ferdinand Magellan's first voyage around the world. That is Antonio Pigafetta. He might not. Once again, I will always repeat this. Some names in this particular discussion might not be that familiar to the class, only because there are other names who were put into the pedestal or were mainstream with regards to this different accomplishment or this particular topics. So let's know first who is the main person behind this particular primary source. That is Antonio Pigafetta. I've already mentioned he is the firstborn of Giovanni and Angela, Giovanni Pigafetta and Angela Sola. Okay, just read this one. Pigafetta was born into a wealthy Visayas family and studied navigation among other things. He joined the Portuguese Captain Ferdinand Magellan and his Spanish crew. Actually, this is Spanish slash Portuguese crew on their trip to Maluku Islands. Okay, with the aid of Armada de Molucca. Okay, while in the Philippines, Magellan was killed and Pigafetta was injured. Nevertheless, he recovered and was among the only eight. Later on, mas madakol niyo. From 18 pala. Later on, mas ma-increase ang number kaniyo of Magellan's original crew who, having completed the first circumnavigation of the world, returned to Spain on board another vessel, the Victoria. Importantly, Pigafetta kept a journal of his voyage and is a key source for information about Magellan's famous journey. Okay, so in our perspective as a Filipino, the contribution of Pigafetta in our history is anchored on when, or rather anchored on the time when they arrived in the Philippines, as well as what are the things, or not just limited to things, okay, what are the behavior of the people that they've encountered the first time they landed in the Philippines, and even before they landed in the Philippines, they've met people while they're on the sea. So we will try to check the different perspective of what Pigafetta used while he is creating his account. At the same time, we'll try to use different lenses in analyzing these different accounts or different parts of his accounts. Okay. Before they arrived in the Philippines, we'll try to discuss some important things related to the first voyage. First is the Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay. Back then, Portugal and Spain are the two powerhouse when it comes to colonizing or discovering. The term is discovering on their end on the different lands. Okay, lands or countries. But since there are two powerhouses on that particular field, a rule must be set. Okay, and one of which is the Treaty of Tordesillas, or it is also known as Tordesillas line of Tordesillas. It only means that there's an imaginary line wherein the Portugal is only allowed to discover or start expedition, or sponsor expeditions on the east side of this imaginary line, in Spain is allowed to do expedition and voyages on the west side. Okay, and it's also important to take note about the geography in this one, because that's one of the things which created confusion, especially on the dates related to this particular topic. Okay, in Pigafetta's account, definitely they've started their voyage in September 20 of 1519. And, knowing the geography, definitely they'll pass by another imaginary line, that is the international date line, which will somewhat create confusions when it comes to different sources on the internet, especially if those sources have already, not really translated, but placed the perspective into a Filipino setting. Okay, when I say Filipino setting, pero one day ano siya nagbalik. I'm not mistaken. So meaning it's not that big deal if it's only paying within the same month, but there are some accounts or there are some dates in Picafetta's account where April. May 1 si nasa account niya pero yung April 30 sa ibang account only because of that particular day difference. So in related to this Treaty of Tordesillas, okay, nahiling daw ang title is From Portugal to Spain. I did already mention this one. Ferdinand Magellan is siyang Spaniard. He is a Portuguese, but for what is the reason why he sailed under the flag of Spain? Is that the proposal of starting this particular voyage was not really entertained in Portugal, as well as there are some political issues related to Ferdinand Magellan. There were some sources who are or which are stating na naging traidor si Magellan in some sort. Siguro may pag-corrupt na nagganap. So those things, it created an impact on his particular expedition proposal. And he also did present this particular proposal to Spain, specifically Charles I. Later on will become Emperor Charles V. Okay, and Charles did sponsor this expedition of Ferdinand Magellan. So he created his, or invited people, both the nationality of Spaniards and Portuguese, given the nature of the particular person who spearheaded this voyage. So mix of those people, as well as there is Southeast Asian, basically the translator who will aid Magellan in his crew in communicating with the native people they will encounter in this particular voyage. So 270, if I'm not mistaken, 200 plus people. And the name of their fleet is Armada de Moluccas. Reason is one aim of this voyage is to look for Molucca, the Spice Island, and gather resources which are not that abundant in European countries. Mas abundant siya sa mga Asian countries in these different archipelagic uh, countries or islands which can be found in Asia. Okay, and aside from that reason of looking for the Spice Island, they also into still discovering different places which are not yet visited by these two powerhouse colonizers. Okay, and on the side of Antonio Pigafetta, he is the one who will document the things which will happen during the voyage. Okay, and it's not just limited to the voyage, meaning the places they will pass by, or the sea body of water, body of land they will pass by. Meaning it's not just limited to the geography. It's also something to do with the climate of the places they will visit, the flora and fauna, and encounters with the native people from different places they will visit. Okay, Armada de Molucca is composed of 5 ships. They are the most yung parang flagship mismo would be Trinidad, okay, and the consorts would be Concepcion, Victoria, Santiago, and San Antonio, if I'm not mistaken. But the only ship which successfully circumnavigate, meaning it will leave the Spain and return back to Spain, would be Victoria. Trinidad was almost there, meaning di kita ko makabalik, kundi after the or after the fleet left the Philippines, okay, na-encounter nila or naka-encounter sila mga Portuguese, which disabled them to continuing, or disabled Trinidad ship from continuing to returning back to Spain. Okay, so those are the special things that happened before the voyage. Okay, and then the voyage started. Okay, this is 270 men aboard the Armada de Moluccas, and then only 18 successfully returned back to Spain. That will reach up to 30 something people because sabi ko sa bago, the Trinidad ship was caught by the Portuguese. But then pigturubos man si mga crew na yaon duman sa Trinidad was, medyo naraot na kaya siya. So maliban duman sa nag-stop over muna sa Trinidad para ayuson. Instrumental din or dako ng bagay din na kaya pang ma-emphasize na naharang sila ka mga Portuguese. Pero later on matutubos man tang Spain itong mga taong ito, and then makakabalik din sila sa Spain, which will increase the number from 18 to 35, 30 something people. Okay, and another important thing na kaya pang emphasize digdi is the Strait of Magellan. Okay, this one is the strait. If you see the first photo there, it's not that clear, quite small, apologies. This is the South America. Okay, it's not the first time that this particular path was traveled by the voyagers. It's just that this is the first time na-document siya ng mas maayos. So mas maayos, mas detailed siya pagka-document to the point that it was named under the name of the captain of that particular voyage. Okay, and it's also important that to take note that Pacific Ocean was also named by Ferdinand Magellan. They, basically from the word itself, they call it Mare Pacifico because it is quite placid ocean for them. Okay, and they did not expect the how wide that particular ocean is. They traveled it for 98, 99 days. Okay, before they finally um landed on a body of land. Landed on a body of land. Okay, and this is I just picked five parts of that particular um primary source. This one is the first one. Okay, let me read it first. These people have no armors but use sticks, which have fishbone at the end. They are poor, but ingenious and great thieves. And for that sake, we will call these three islands the Ladrones Island. Okay, this is not yet in the Philippines. Okay, Ladrones Island, present time Marianas Island siya. Okay, so still near the Philippines, but not yet in the Philippines. Okay, it's important na mailing because this is the first time they've seen people who are not part of their crew. At the same time, this is the first time they will actually land on a body of land. Okay, they did um, encounter people, and immediately they had impressions. Okay, so these impressions are actually interesting. Okay, if you check this particular slide, you'll see that first thing Pigafetta noticed is that they have no armors because they believe, or on Pigafetta's perspective, um, engaging into or communicating and yes, engaging to people who you did not meet, who you do not know, yung foreign people, you must make sure that you are safe and secure and maliban sa mayong armors and yung mga people all throughout Pigafetta's account, he will mention that these people, not just the people of Marianes slash Ladrones Island, but at the same time, the people they will meet in the Philippines are naked. They will, or Pigafetta rather, will always emphasize, always take note that these people are naked. At the same time, one like impactful descriptive word we can see in this particular slide is the word poor. Okay, they immediately assume that the people they've encountered are poor because based on their perspective, they already have the biases or the nuances of what rich looks like, what poor looks like. So we will in this particular slide, mahiling to talaga si lalo sa complexities or issues when it comes to different accounts na pwedeng mag-abot sa tuya. Okay, the possibility na it is created by a person who possibly is already biased when it comes to different things. Not just really biased, but not that informed, not that knowledgeable yet when it comes to the culture of the different places they are visiting. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, this one it's interesting and it's actually quite lengthy. It took 2 slides, actually more than 2 slides na, pero pigkat ko na lang. Okay, this palm produce a fruit named cocho, which is as large as a head or thereabouts. Its first husk is green, and 2 fingers in thickness. In it, they find certain threads with which they make the cords for fastening their boats. Under this husk, there is another very hard and thicker than that of walnut. They burn this second rind and make it with a powder which is useful to them. Under this rind, there is a white marrow of a finger's thickness, which they ate fresh. So basically, if you read this one, you will be curious what is this particular fruit. Okay, this time, nasa ano na sinda kanina, nasa Pilipinas na sinda. Okay, I didn't really, I will not chronologically cover what happened from day to day na yaon sinda sa Pilipinas. Okay, I will just, inject or butt in some of the dates. But, I will not really focus on the dates given the possibility that the dates might create confusion. So I will just, create a separate list of the dates we will use para we're all on the same page when it comes to, if ever there will be a quiz. But going back to this one, once again, they are already in the Philippines here. And I think most of you have already guessed it. That is correct. This is buko. Okay, coconut. Interesting enough, Pigafetta views the, not really like 1 page length about buko, but he noticeably put emphasis on the different details of this particular food. Okay, and this is a one way of weighing in or balancing things. Okay, there are things wherein the Europeans or the colonizers back then were unfamiliar with. Okay, and they were things wherein they are familiar with. Same thing with the people they've arrived at. Okay, or the place they've arrived at, the people they've met. These people have things which are familiar to them and things which are abundant in their place. On the other hand, there are also things which are unfamiliar to them. When the first Filipinos, actually Filipinos, they were not yet called Filipinos back then, but for discussion's sake, I will call them the native Filipinos back then encountered with the colonizers. So the first thing they noticed was how fascinating their armors were. Okay, so sulot ninda, okay, how fascinating their swords were. So it's an interesting thing for them. Same goes in Kipigafetta. They find it really interesting, or for him, it is very interesting to see these different floras and faunas, which are very abundant in the Philippines or in the places they are actually visiting or arriving at. Not really, baka masin ng visitors. Okay, next slide. There are some error in the sequencing of this slide. We'll start with number 4, and then number 3 and 5 are related. Okay, let's start first with number 4. When the offertory of the mass came, 2 kings went to kiss the cross like us, but they offered nothing. And at the elevation of the body of our Lord, they were kneeling like us and adored our Lord with joined hands. Okay, in this one, this quite emphasize, once again, it's not that obvious, but it shows how Pigafetta deemed that they are superior to the people they've met in the Philippines in this particular island. At this time, it is about the first mass in the Philippines. Once again, first mass in the Philippines will still cover it, in a more detailed way in our next, not really next topic, but topics maybe in finals related to one history, many stories. Only because there are some, confusions as to the exact date. When it comes to date, I've already mentioned what's the reason kung ano may confusions sa date, possible because of, the international dateline. But aside from the date, it is also noticeable the specific place where the first mass was held. Okay, because part of Pigafetta's account, he mentioned that the first mass must happen in the shoreline because civilizations really blossoms in shorelines or body of water. And then but after the first mass, they requested that certain symbol of cross will be placed not really on the shoreline but in a place wherein mas hiling siya or mas visible siya sa mga papaaging barko or bangka, ships. Okay, so it was placed somewhere in a mountain, so that created different records and different perspective as to saan talaga nag-start, pero putting that aside, going back to this particular part of Pigafetta's account, ito. They deemed that because they are superior and they have really introduced Christianity or Christianism into the Filipinos or the native Filipinos whom they met when they arrived in the Philippines. They deemed that they are copying, or the native Filipinos were copying them because they know that the superiority. Okay, and also in relation to this first mass, okay, in Pigafetta's account, there's also part of it wherein pigpapahiling din parang first miracle. Okay, during the first mass kasi, um, okay, the two kings of the places they have already visited, yun si Raha Kulambo, Raha Mabon, already agreed to be converted into Catholics. Okay, same goes with the people na napapamunuan kaning duwang haring ini duwang rahang ini. Okay, but when the group of Magellan or Pigafetta um, already converted these people into Christians. At the same time, they already instructed these people na, because they are practicing, the Filipinos were practicing animism, meaning, sinasamba ninda kung anong nahihiling, kung ano ang aram nindang nakakatabang sa inda. When I say, ano nakakatabang sa inda, they pray to the body of water, they pray to different rocks, anitos, they pray to the sun. They basically pray nature because they believe that this part of environment has, spirits na dapat nindang sambahon para tabangan sa inda. Yung ani ang nagtatabang sa inda mga anito. So this is, not really in line when it comes to the beliefs of Christians, Catholics rather. So pinasulo ninda itong mga anitong ito in mga sinasamba ninda. But then did these people obey them immediately? Not really. Okay, for the reason na ang sabi man nila, since they've been practicing this one and praying and pagsamba sa mga anito and sa nature is not just for the sake of blessing but it's also for the sake of healing. There's a member of the community who is sick. They told them na di itang nasuloon ining mga anitong ini because may sarong may makulog. May paparahayan nga. But Pigafetta and Magellan's group stood their ground and told them, no, just believe in God, pray to God, and miracles will happen. And indeed, it did happen. Okay, pinasulo, and then after several days, that sick person, was healed. They started walking. Okay, and somewhat showed miracle. Okay, so that particular proof actually was instrumental to the success rate, I must say, of converting other native Filipinos back then into Catholics. Okay, and going to the next, going back. Okay, in this one, once again, let me just emphasize, I'm not going chronologically to the times they arrived in the Philippines. This one is the parang ano na, patapos na. Okay, this was during Pigafetta or during Magellan's and Lapu-Lapu's battle. Okay, so in this one, Pigafetta wrote that in this time ano na siya, may conflict na. Okay, there is a certain misunderstanding when it comes to the end of or group of Magellan and Lapu-Lapu. There are times na nagka-offenda na sila. But there are very few encounters. It's just that, they are not really on the same page when it comes to understanding things. Magellan deeming themselves as superior or demanding things, which, the group of Lapu-Lapu deem they should not provide because, they understand that it is their place in the, it's not really a win-win situation. But don't get it wrong. During the time, Magellan, the group of Magellan was not that aggressive. Okay, they came to the Philippines not really to fight, like unlike the several or the following batch of Spaniards who arrived in the Philippines, na aggressive nga with the purpose of colonizing and staying in the Philippines. This time sila Magellan was a good give and take ang nangyayari. Okay, when the native Filipinos offer some things, they also offer things. But at the time na sinda na si Kadako na nare-receive was the time that they've already convinced that they have brought like a concept, a system which will benefit the native Filipinos if they will just believe the group of Magellan or if they will just obey them. Okay, so going back to this particular one, let me read. When we reached the land, we found the islanders 1,500 in number, drawn up in 3 squadrons. They came down upon us with terrible shouts, 2 squadrons attacking us from the back, and the third in front. Okay, later. Okay, this one, interesting thing, they arrived in kumbaga sa kampo nila, Magellan, they're only few, okay, because they did not expect that it will be like that kind of battle. But one of the issues we've already discussed is the fact that some accounts are written by victors. In this one, technically, the group of Magellan were not the victors. Okay, nagadan nga ni si leader ninda, but on shifting perspective, they are winners when it comes to documenting the things. Okay, so there are presumptions that maybe they've exaggerated the number of people who actually attacked them because of the reason na we're not discounting the skills of Pigafetta when it comes to estimating people. He is a nobleman whose skills were polished, but it's quite impossible to estimate, or geographically they are not really in an elevated place wherein they can easily estimate the number of people. You know what I'm saying? Di ba nasa shoreline yun na pag abot nila duman sa land na to, sa island na to, from shoreline, it's not, what I'm saying is the number of people who attacked the group of Magellan is still in question. Okay, the number of people, but we are not raising the authenticity of the authenticity of the entire account of Pigafetta. There's just question because we are continuously including things related to this particular account. Okay, so the number is quite it's interesting. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay, and in this last part, while the Indians were thus overpowering him, this time si Ferdinand Magellan, he was already attacked. Okay, he was already injured. Okay, he was already speared by one of Lapu-Lapu's men. And in this one, the tone, it's quite dramatic. Unlike the other parts of, I'm not saying like dramatic na to the point na mapapahibi na, but there's an embedded emotion in this particular part. Okay, we're thus empowering him several times. He turned round towards us to see if we're already safe, as though his obstinate fight had no other object than to give an opportunity for the retreat of his men. Meaning, he is still portraying Magellan as that hero, or that responsible captain who will sacrifice himself. Cannot really sacrifice himself. It's just that they already on the losing end of this particular battle. But the type of captain who will still ensure that his men can retreat successfully, though they are already placed in harm, they are already injured. So this one shows how loyal. I will say loyal, not really key sa captain niyang si Magellan, but loyal to the flag of Spain. Okay, still portraying, upholding the characteristics of a Spanish captain. Okay, so bottom line, there's different parts of Pigafetta's account, which I included in our short discussion, or not the highlights of the entirety, but it is the highlight for us because these things particularly or specifically happened in the Philippines. Okay, a lot of his a huge part of Pigafetta's account were documenting their voyage in the sea. Okay, but using these different accounts, it's important. Okay, so analysis on this one. Being the earliest detailed documentation, it was believed that Pigafetta's writing account for the purest believe that Pigafetta's writings account for the purest pre-colonial society. Okay, in quote bargain ang purest because of the fact that we know there are nuances, there are some things na may hiling tang may pagkabias din talaga. But the good thing about the people who are studying history right now is we are equipped shifting and analyzing different context behind the different possible biases of the primary accounts na maarabot sa tuya. Okay, nevertheless, there needs to have a more nuanced reading for this source within contextual backdrop. I've already mentioned that. It is also worthy to notice that the author was a noble descent, which attributes influence to his narrative. Once again, kasubago sa first example, yeah, 01 example or part of Pigafetta's account. Itong poor, nalinta itong, once again, I've mentioned the word naked, not literally, but the Spanish translation of it was mentioned numerous times in his account because it is actually his perspective as a rich person. Okay, he noticed things which are unusual in his class. Okay, same time, one has to keep in mind that he was coming from a 16th century European perspective. Okay, so these are the things we must make sure na man-notice ma-emphasize, and matatawang pansin when we are trying to analyze different parts of Pigafetta's account. So a quiz will be related to this discussion. Okay, please prepare next meeting a quiz related once again to this one, and look forward to other video uploads because there are still several activities which I need to break down and for you to digest. Thank you.